done? What came over me? Who am I? It was wonderful. I loved every minute of it. But
Sally Field. For over 6 decades, she's been America's sweetheart, a 2-time Oscar winner, and one of the most respected actresses of her generation. Her talent and warmth made her a Hollywood icon, an artist whose work in films from Norma, Ray to Forrest Gump is the stuff of legend. But what if we told you that behind that famous smile was a woman who often had to fight just to be heard? In recent months, a shocking headline has gone viral, blazing across social media. At 78, Sally Field names the 6 actors she hated. It's a stunning claim that promises to pull back the curtain on bitter feuds and on-set battles. But did she really do it? Did this beloved icon actually drop a bombshell list of her most despised co-stars? The truth is far more complex, more nuanced, and way more interesting than any clickbait title. We're not here to repeat the rumors. We're here to investigate them, to separate the fact from the fiction. These are the real stories you were never meant to hear, not of hate, but of survival in a brutal industry. Let's be perfectly clear right from the start. Sally Field has never publicly released a hate list. There was no bombshell interview, no tell-all press conference, no fit of rage where she named names. The whole idea is a fabrication, a myth born from the internet's endless appetite for celebrity drama. So where did this story even come from? It's a twisted reflection of the raw, unflinching honesty in her 2018 memoir, In Pieces. That book is not a burn book. It's a profound and often painful look at her own life, her insecurities, her trauma, and the complex relationships that shaped her. In its pages, she doesn't list people she hated. Instead, she details the deeply wounding and complicated dynamics she lived through, especially with one major figure in her life. The internet, doing what it does best, took this introspective work, twisted it, and blended it with decades-old whispers and outright fictions to create a sensational 6-person list. Our mission today is to dismantle that list, one name at a time. We'll dive into the one relationship that truly was as painful as the rumors claim, and we'll debunk the myths about the other 5, revealing a truer story of a woman navigating the treacherous waters of Hollywood, fighting for respect and refusing to be silenced. This isn't a story of hate. It's the story of Sally Field's resilience. The first name on this fabricated list is almost always Burt Reynolds, and in this case, the rumors are rooted in a painful truth. They were the Hollywood romance of the late 1970s. On screen in movies, like Smokey and the Bandit, their chemistry was electric, a playful, charismatic dance that audiences couldn't get enough of. They were a power couple, their love story splashed across every tabloid. The public saw a fairy tale. Behind the scenes, however, the reality was a darker, more unsettling story, one Sally would only fully unpack decades later. Field described a relationship that was profoundly complicated and, in the end, deeply hurtful. The swagger that charmed the world was often a private mask for a man who was deeply controlling. In Pieces, she writes about how Reynolds seemed to want to mold her, to make her an accessory to his own stardom. She recalls him being dismissive of her ambitions, especially her drive to be a serious dramatic actress. While she was pouring her soul into roles that would redefine her career, he seemed to view her efforts with disinterest. This wasn't just professional. It was deeply personal. Field describes a dynamic where she felt she had to shrink herself to exist in his world. She wrote that he tried to housebreak her, teaching her what was and wasn't acceptable. This included a suffocating possessiveness. She became terrified to even mention men from her past for fear of triggering his jealousy. It was a constant performance, not just for the cameras, but for the man she loved. She felt like she stopped existing for herself. This emotional turmoil was made worse by their clashing professional goals. While Field was fighting for serious roles that would lead to her first Oscar for Norma Ray, Reynolds seemed happy with the lighter fare that made him a star. Her Oscar win should have been a moment of shared joy, but her memoir suggests a much less encouraging private reality. She felt her success was an inconvenience to him, a light he wanted to dim so it didn't outshine his. In her memoir, Field connects her dynamic with Reynolds to her childhood trauma of being sexually abused by her stepfather. She explains that, with Reynolds, she was subconsciously trying to fix a broken pattern, to finally make a difficult relationship work this time. She wrote, "He was a preformed rut in my road. We were a perfect match of flaws." The relationship finally crumbled. Years later, Reynolds would publicly call Field the love of his life, expressing regret. But for Field, that love was tied to pain. She admitted she was relieved he would never read her memoir, which was published shortly after his death. "This would hurt him," she told the New York Times, explaining she had to tell her own truth. So, did Sally Field hate Burt Reynolds? The word is too simple. What she describes is a profound heartbreak caused by a man she loved, but who was also controlling, hurtful, and dismissive of the woman she was fighting to become. The next name that pops up on these lists is Tommy Lee Jones. This story isn't one of explosive fights, but of a chilling, impenetrable silence that left Sally Field feeling completely alone. They worked together on the 1981 film Back Roads, a drama where Field played a streetwise prostitute and Jones a boxer on the run. The movie depended entirely on the chemistry between its two leads. Field showed up ready to build that connection. Instead, she hit a wall. From day one, Jones was reportedly cold, distant, and totally unapproachable. For an actress like Field, whose craft is built on connection, this was jarring. She tried everything, making small talk, asking about their characters, anything to build the rapport they needed for their on-screen romance to feel real. Her efforts were met with silence or one-word answers. He'd show up, hit his marks, deliver his lines with that signature intensity, and leave. There was no warmth, no camaraderie, just a deep, unnerving coldness. Field later said it felt like she was playing alone. This wasn't just a personal slight, it affected the movie. When Back Roads came out, critics pointed out the glaring lack of chemistry. The New York Times review noted the film lacked the magic needed to pull it off. The audience could feel the distance between them because it was real. The director, Martin Ritt, reportedly even blamed the film's poor performance on his stars, not getting along. This was a huge professional frustration for Field. She had built a career on creating believable relationships. With Jones, she had to manufacture every bit of their supposed connection all by herself. It was exhausting. Some sources claim they fought like cats and dogs, but Field's own accounts focus more on the psychological toll of his dismissiveness. The experience was so draining that she vowed to never work with him again, a promise she's kept for over 40 years. Interestingly, one report claims that years later, Jones apologized to her for his behavior, and she graciously accepted. This adds another layer, suggesting his actions might have stemmed from a tough time in his own life, not a personal issue with Field. But regardless of the reason, the impact on her was undeniable. The viral lists call it hate, but what Field describes sounds more like the deep frustration of being met with a wall of ice when you're trying to build a fire. If you're finding these untold Hollywood stories as fascinating as we are, and if you believe in getting to the truth behind the gossip, do us a favor and hit that like button and subscribe. We have so much more to uncover, and you won't want to miss it. The third name on the viral list is one of the most respected actors of his generation, Dustin Hoffman. This story is different. It's not about a bad time on set because Sally, Field and Dustin Hoffman have never actually been in a movie together. This rumor comes from a single alleged encounter, an audition in the early 1980s that's been described as one of the most demeaning moments of Field's career. Now, we have to be super clear here. Unlike the Burt Reynolds story, the details of this audition are not in her memoir, or any major interviews. This story lives mostly in the internet echo chamber, retold and embellished on blogs and YouTube. But the rumor is so widespread that it's become part of her story, and it speaks to a power dynamic that many actors have faced. The story goes that Field was called in to read with Hoffman, who was already a Hollywood legend. Field, despite her own awards, was still fighting for respect and trying to shake her sitcom image. According to the legend, the audition was a disaster. Hoffman allegedly dominated the room, interrupting her, mocking her choices, and basically turning the audition into a public critique of her talent. To the producers, it might have looked like a genius at work. To Field, it reportedly felt like a calculated humiliation. The most brutal part of the rumor is that a mutual friend later told Field that Hoffman had bragged about sabotaging the audition, saying the chemistry wasn't there because he'd made sure of it. If true, that's just deliberate cruelty. It's the story of a powerful male star using his status to belittle a fellow actor. Again, we have to treat this story with caution. It's a persistent online rumor. Field has talked about difficult auditions in general, but the dramatic details of this specific encounter with Hoffman aren't confirmed by her. It's possible the story is an exaggeration, but its persistence points to a larger truth about the audition room, a vulnerable space where power imbalances can be on full display. It remains on the viral hate list, not because of a confirmed feud, but because it's a story of disrespect that resonates deeply, whether it's true or not. Now we arrive at a name on the supposed hate list, where the story goes from rumor to pure fiction: Michael Douglas. Let's be unequivocal on this. Any story of a feud between Sally Field and Michael Douglas is a fantasy for one simple reason: they have never worked together. Not in a film, not on a TV show, not ever. His name on this list is a perfect example of how misinformation spreads online, where a juicy headline is worth more than the truth. So where did this even come from? It's hard to trace the origin of a lie, but it's likely a mix of things. First, both were huge stars who moved from TV to film around the same time. It's easy to group them together. Second, you could imagine a gossip blogger speculating about a clash between their different acting styles and just presenting that guess as a fact. The most likely, though still very thin, connection is the 1984 film Romancing the Stone. Michael Douglas starred in and produced it. Sally Field was reportedly one of many actresses considered for the lead female role that ultimately went to Kathleen Turner. There is zero evidence that her passing on the role had anything to do with Michael Douglas. Actors pass on roles all the time for countless reasons, but in the world of online gossip, that tiny connection that she could have been in a movie with him was enough to start a fire. The rumor was then decorated with made-up details, claiming they clashed over acting styles and that she had to ask directors to rein him in. Again, none of this could have happened because they never shared a set. The Michael Douglas story is a case study in how celebrity feud content gets made. It takes two famous names, a flimsy connection, and invents a drama around it. So when you see his name on a list of actors Sally Field hated, you can dismiss it entirely. It's not an exaggeration. It's a story built on thin air. Perhaps one of the most surprising names on this fictional list is another Hollywood legend, Shirley MacLaine. The two starred together in the iconic 1989 tearjerker Steel Magnolias. The film is a beloved classic, celebrated for its powerful depiction of female friendship and the amazing chemistry of its cast. The story of a feud between Field and MacLaine is especially ugly because it tries to tarnish a film that means so much to so many. And once again, the truth is far more nuanced. The rumor claims there was a bitter rivalry between the two Oscar winners. It paints a picture of MacLaine dominating the set with her ego, clashing with Field's more grounded approach. Some stories even allege that MacLaine would try to steal scenes, turning Field's emotional moments into comedy bits. This is a complete misreading of what actually happened. According to Sally Field and other cast members, the main tension on that set wasn't between the actresses, but their shared frustration with the director, Herbert Ross. By all accounts, Ross was incredibly harsh, especially towards a young Julia Roberts. Field herself has said, "Our keenest memory was how hard it was to work with our director. We hated him and we would go after him." She explained that the senior actresses, herself, Shirley MacLaine, and Dolly Parton, banded together to protect Roberts from his criticism. Instead of dividing them, the director's behavior forged a powerful bond among the women. They became a protective unit. This is the exact opposite of a feud. The set of Steel Magnolias wasn't a battlefield. It was a sisterhood, formed in the trenches against a common enemy. At a 2012 event honoring MacLaine, Field spoke movingly about her, calling her legendary and wickedly funny. She ended her tribute by saying, "Congratulations, Shirley. I love you to pieces." Those are not the words of a woman describing someone she hated. The bond between the women of Steel Magnolias was, and is, real. The feud is fiction. The final name on this fabricated list is maybe the most baffling of all, Jeff Bridges. Field and Bridges co-starred in the 1976 film Stay Hungry, a quirky cult classic. In the film, Bridges plays a wealthy Southerner who gets into the world of bodybuilding, and Field plays his love interest. The rumor about Jeff Bridges is incredibly thin and seems to be based more on a guess about Sally Field's mindset at the time than any actual conflict. The story alleges that Field, who was fighting tooth and nail for respect, was frustrated by Bridges's famously casual, laid-back acting style. It suggests she saw his chill vibe as a form of indifference to the serious work she was trying to do. This narrative has almost no evidence to back it up. There's no public record, not in her memoir, not in interviews, of Sally Field ever saying a bad word about Jeff Bridges or their time on Stay Hungry. The entire conflict seems to have been invented by gossip sites that took two known facts, Field's ambition and Bridges's relaxed demeanor, and created a fictional clash. The reality of that production was challenging, but not because of Jeff Bridges. Field details in her memoir a disturbing audition with the film's director, Bob Rafelson. It's telling that this documented, troubling experience is often ignored in favor of a completely made-up story about her and her co-star. This rumor feels like they were just trying to fill out the list, creating drama where none existed. It's the final and perhaps most obvious piece of evidence that this viral hate list is a work of fiction. So, after digging through the rumors, the half-truths, and the fictions, where does that leave us? That sensational headline, "At 78, Sally Field names the 6 actors she hated," is simply not true. It's a viral myth, a distortion of a much more profound and personal story. Sally Field didn't release a hate list. What she did, in her brave memoir, In Pieces, was tell her own truth. She gave us an unflinching look at one of the most painful relationships of her life, the one with Burt Reynolds, revealing the heartbreaking complexity of a love tangled up with control. She's alluded to the professional frustration of working with a co-star as cold as Tommy Lee Jones. But beyond that, the list completely falls apart. The stories about Dustin Hoffman, Michael Douglas, Shirley MacLaine, and Jeff Bridges are a mix of unverified rumors, complete fabrications, and wild misinterpretations. They are myths created for clicks, designed to flatten complex people into heroes and villains. The real story isn't about a list of enemies. It's the story of a woman's journey through a deeply flawed industry. It's about her fight for respect, her struggle to find her own voice, and her unwavering commitment to her craft. Sally Field's story isn't one of hatred. It's a powerful testament to survival, resilience, and the quiet strength it takes to put the broken pieces of a life back together and emerge whole. Who on this viral list surprised you the most to learn the truth about? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you appreciated this deep dive, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories. Thanks for watching.